Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're doing something a little bit wild. We are going to embark on a journey that takes us from the explosive cosmic destruction of an ancient myth all the way down to the hyper-precise rhythmic jingling of a single dancer's anklet. We're unlocking the secrets of the ancient Tamil epic, the Silappatikaram, to decode what has to be one of the most powerful performances ever recorded in literature. I'm talking about Madhavi's legendary rendition of the Kodig Kodi dance.
Here's how we're going to break this down today. First, the epic of Silappatikaram. Second, Shiva and the Kodukati. Third, designing the perfect stage. Fourth, Madhavi as the divine. And finally, ornaments as musical instruments. So we're basically moving from the macro to the micro here. We'll start with the grand epic itself, unpack the mythic origins of the dance, and then zoom all the way in on the nitty-gritty reality of ancient stagecraft, human endurance, and some seriously exquisite costuming.
All right, Part 1, the Epic of Silappatikaram, Framing the Divine Dance. We have to start with our foundational text. You see, the Silappatikaram isn't just a story, it's honestly more like a profound cultural encyclopedia of ancient Tamil Nadu. Written almost 2 millennia ago, it chronicles an era where art, daily life, and divinity were just seamlessly intertwined. And right at the very heart of this epic is a dancer named Madhavi who is about to make her monumental debut.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how Madhavi's repertoire breaks down. She didn't just learn a couple of steps to entertain a crowd. The text tells us she mastered 11 distinct divine ritual dances. And as you can see, these are strictly categorized into 2 incredibly demanding postures. You've got Nindradal, which are these dynamic standing dances, and then Vijandathal, which involve complex sitting or lowered postures. She had this immense physical versatility because she was tasked with embodying literally everything, from a fierce god on a battlefield to a disguised deity in an earthly village.
Moving right along to Section 2, Shiva and the Kodukati, a cosmic dance of victory. Let's see how all of this builds into the absolute most explosive performance of those 11 dances.
To really grasp the monumental challenge Madhavi was up against on that stage, we've got to define the exact divine form she was embodying. The Kodukoti is intimately tied to Madhagupakan. This is the unique half-man, half-woman form of Lord Shiva. Think about that for a second. You're dancing, and you have to radiate the fierce, destructive energy of a warrior on one side of your body, and the calm, graceful precision of a goddess on the other. That is the duality of Madhupakan. She had to project both of those wildly different energies simultaneously.
So why exactly is Shiva dancing in the first place? Well, the myth goes that 3 demons built these 3 impenetrable forts, called the Muppuram, to terrorize the innocent. And Shiva? He destroyed them with just a smile, clapping his hands in joyous victory. But the Kodukati wasn't just about physical triumph. It was deeply philosophical. The burning of those 3 forts actually represents the destruction of our inner human flaws: ego, lust, and illusion. So Madhavi wasn't just out there entertaining an audience. She was essentially performing a spiritual cleansing right there on stage.
And the epic illustrates this beautifully. Over in Canto 6, the ancient poem describes Shiva dancing the Kodukati with faultless rhythm right there amongst the ashes, while his consort, Uma, stands beside him, perfectly keeping time on the burial ground. It's this scene of staggering, ultimate destruction, perfectly balanced by strict mathematical rhythm.
Which brings us to Section 3, Designing the Perfect Stage, the Architecture of the Orange-a-True. Because you have to wonder, how do you bring a wild, cosmic myth of burning forts and dancing gods to a mortal audience?
The answer? Highly calculated mathematical stagecraft. According to the strict Shilpa Shastra rules mentioned in the epic, the stage, the Orange-a-True, couldn't just be slapped together anywhere. It was meticulously measured out. The standard unit they used was the kol, which was a sacred bamboo stick cut from the hills, featuring a very specific distance between its joints. The stage had to be exactly 8 kols in length. That translates to precisely 32 feet. Literally everything was dictated by this sacred, awe-inspiring geometry.
They used a strict spatial plan: 32 feet long, 28 feet wide, and 4 feet high. But honestly, the most mind-blowing part to me is the lighting design. The epic specifically states that the lamps were positioned so that the pillars holding up the painted ceiling wouldn't cast any distracting shadows on the dancer. I mean, no way, right? Shadowless lighting on a stage thousands of years ago? The engineering required to achieve that is just absolutely brilliant.
And that incredible stagecraft totally extended to the audio too.
Before Madhavi even appeared, the audience was primed through this highly specific acoustic timeline. It's like a masterclass in building hype. First you hear the pure melody of the flute, the kujal, drifting out. Then, the stringed lute, the yaj, joins in perfect harmony. Next, the deep, resonating beat of the tandamai drum sets the pulse. And only after this beautifully layered, accelerating buildup, when the audience's anticipation is at an absolute peak, does Madhavi finally make her entrance.
Section 4. Madhavi as the divine, embodying gods on earth. Now we zoom in on the focal point of our explainer, the dancer bringing all this cosmic architecture to life.
The epic gives us this breathtaking description of her. To become this golden creeper animated with life, Madhavi underwent an incredibly austere training regimen. She started at age 5. And she trained for 7 grueling years before she ever stepped foot on that 32-foot stage. Her flawless execution wasn't magic. It was the result of immense, lifelong discipline.
And right here is where we see the true genius of her performance. As we talked about earlier, she had to simultaneously portray 2 vastly different emotional states, or bhavas. On one side, Veda, that fierce, heroic, destructive energy of Shiva burning away the ego, and on the other, Ananda, the graceful, blissful precision of Uma keeping cosmic time. Madhavi actually manifested both the destroyer and the timekeeper in one single fluid body.
Finally, Section 5. Ornaments as musical instruments, the sounds of craftsmanship. We are zooming all the way in on the micro details of her jewelry.
The Silapatikaram extensively catalogs her divine adornments, and the imagery is just dazzling. She wore the silambu on her ankles, a multi-layered mechalai around her waist, gleaming fish-shaped earrings called makarakujai, and golden tolvalai on her shoulders. The text notes that precious stones, like deep red rubies, were embedded into the gold with a level of gem-setting craftsmanship that signaled both her high social status and her divine role on stage.
But here is the absolute coolest part of the whole shebang. These ornaments were explicitly categorized as thalakaruvikals, meaning they weren't just pretty, shiny things to look at. They were highly calibrated, functional musical instruments. Every time Madhavi turned, every single time she stamped her foot to channel Shiva's victory, her anklets and her waistband transformed into percussive instruments. The jewelry itself literally echoed the cosmic destruction of the forts, perfectly synchronized with the drums. It's just incredible. So we've traveled from the burning of 3 celestial demons to the calculated acoustics of a ruby waist belt. And I want to leave you with this thought to reflect on. If an ancient dancer, guided by strict mathematics and flawless stagecraft, could physically embody the cosmic destruction of ego right before an audience's eyes, what modern art forms possess that same transformative, mythic power today? Where do we go now to see the divine made visible? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating intersection of storytelling, spirituality, and stagecraft with me.